Hailing frequencies open, and welcome to Star Trek Discoverage, the live podcast that boldly goes into excruciating detail about this week's episode of Star Trek Discovery. I'm your host, Aaron Coker, a.k.a. Caliban, and I can think of more than a few memories that I would like to delete, but the less said about that, the better. Joining me on the show, as usual, is my co-host. She's also the co-host of the Generations Geek podcast, a more or less family-friendly celebration of geekdom on the Chronic Rift Network. It's Ella Pearson. Ella, welcome back to the show.
Hi, thank you.
Ella, how you doing? Did I ask you before what the food situation is like over there? Do you got good food over there?
We get some food. It's mostly like, but I'm dealing with it.
I'm just wondering because my food situation is great. I had a great day. I got a lot of work done. I made a lasagna. That was great. Then I watched the Avengers Endgame trailer and I died. So all that happened to me today.
Yeah, today was a big day.
Did you see
Endgame?
Yeah, did you see it?
I saw the trailer. I'm very concerned. My friend today, who isn't a Marvel fan, asked me who I think is going to die, and I was like, Hannah, all of them. Yeah. They're all going to die.
Yeah. Is there some kind of jiggery-pokery going on where you are going to get to see it before we do? Sometimes they do that. They release it early, like in Commonwealth countries for some reason.
I am really hoping they do because they didn't do it for Captain Marvel.
Okay.
But I am going, my current plan is to just do the most I can to try and get into the like super special red carpet fan screening. Like I'm really going to be out there in line for like 6 hours. So Everyone just send me your positive thoughts.
Well, let me know if you want help with that. I'll throw some of my weight around. Such as it is. Well, also joining us on this episode of Discoverage, he's also a former guest on Enterprising Individuals. He's the author of Trek novels, The Shocks of Adversity, Losing the Peace, and A Less Perfect Union, and he's a 3-time winner of the Strange New Worlds writing competition. It's William Leisner. Bill, welcome back to the show.
Thank you for having me, Aaron.
It's good to have you back. I can't remember. Have we talked before about the upcoming reboot of The Twilight Zone by CBS?
We have not. That has happened more recently, and I'm excited.
Yeah. What are you looking forward to? I mean, do you think that The Twilight Zone is just such a creation of course, Rod Serling and of its time? Like, what do you think that another sort of modern reboot can really add to it?
That's going to be really interesting to see. I mean, I enjoyed the 80s reboot that they did, which was more of a short story format than series. Yeah, the UPN reboot from 2001 didn't quite do it. I don't think they quite had the chemistry there. But the trailer that I've seen of this new one really got me excited.
Yeah, there are some very interesting elements in that trailer, and also seeing that they're doing a terror at 30,000 feet, and it looks like it somehow references or will somehow include like elements from the first one, but it isn't just a direct remake like, say, in the Twilight Zone movie.
Right. I mean, they're the little Easter eggs throughout the ad for the gremlin from the original terror at 20,000 feet, and there were other little props that were snuck in there. So
yeah, they specifically referenced the two William Shatner episodes, which I thought was interesting. So we'll have to. Go ahead.
Nope. Go ahead.
Okay, we'll have to keep an eye on that because I already have the CBS All Access subscription, and I'm definitely a big fan of that. Thanks for joining us tonight. Let's talk a little Trek news before we get into tonight's episode. We've actually heard about another actor that's been cast in the Picard show, and they really need to finalize the title for this thing. The Picard show sounds like a must-see TV Thursday night sitcom, but A guy named Evan, I'm going to mess his name up. Evan Evagora will be playing an unspecified role on the show, and he's pretty young. He's only got one other credit to his name. He'll be appearing in the upcoming Fantasy Island film adaptation, which I had not heard about. Patrick Stewart also said in an interview that the show is planned at this point to run for about 3 years. So we're learning a little bit more about the show as we go. Bill, what do you think about the idea of revisiting Picard after 20 years?
Well, I love it. I mean, I think that Picard is probably the character to pick up from the Next Generation and from the 24th century Trekverse to really, be a viewpoint for, what looks like it's going to be the 25th century of the Federation.
Yeah.
And, of course, Patrick Stewart.
Yeah.
Sir Patrick.
Yeah.
What more do you need?
Yeah, right. I actually think, from that perspective, let's just see Patrick Stewart do some more. I think that's really great. As far as the character goes, though, I actually think that he might be one of the worst characters. I'm convinced that he's just going to die doing that same thing. He's just, it's kind of like how TNG wrapped up. They're just going to keep going. He's going to keep exploring, that he's married to the service and to his ship and his life. And so, if we go back and just have more adventures of that, that's fine. But where would a different character, like Sisko, for instance, I'd really like to know if Sisko's going to come back. I think there's more hooks there. But yeah, I would absolutely watch Patrick Stewart, read the phone book or whatever. Ella, are you of a similar mind with the Picard show, that hilarious sitcom?
Yes. I don't know. It's like the more of Disco I watch, the more I just trust whatever is happening next.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like when they announced all the shows in the beginning, I was kind of like, I don't know. But it's like the farther we get into Disco, I'm just like, okay, I'll put my children in your hands. This is my take care of him.
Something that kind of bothers me, and it's kind of irrational, but I was thinking about this today, is that now that Star Trek is once again a franchise, and it's being kind of turned out with all these different shows, it isn't anymore just the sort of crazy idea by this guy that did a cop show, and then also he maybe wanted to do it's a hot air balloon show. No, I guess it's a space show instead, and then he goes out and he gets Spinrad and Matheson and Ellison, the greatest sci-fi writers ever to create this world in this show. Now it's just kind of like CBS just gets career TV people. And it's fine to be Maurice Hurley was a career TV guy. He didn't really do sci-fi up until he did TNG. But something about it is will they protect it? Will they keep Trek what it is? And of course, if anything, we've learned that Trek can be whatever you want. So it's a stupid thing to worry about. But I don't know, just with tonight's episode, and this isn't, I didn't love tonight's episode. My objections to it don't have to do necessarily with it as a sci-fi story, but it was written, of course, by Michelle Paradise, who was recently announced as the new co-showrunner for season 3. And she was previously on producer and writer for the Originals show, which I never watched, but it's, kind of a genre show. It's a vampire thing. But I wonder, it's is she a Trekkie, or is this just a job? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean. But you also have Kirsten Beyer, who came into the franchise.
Yeah, of course.
Woo!
Side of television, never did television before, came in on the strength of her Star Trek novels and her other, prose fiction.
Yeah.
And she's running the Picard show. The Picard show.
Yeah, right. Well, let's get into it then. We're talking about, of course, the 9th episode of the 2nd season of Star Trek Discovery, Project Daedalus, and we're here to break it down for you. Before we start, as always, we are setting a course for the spoiler zone, so be warned. We're glad you've decided to join us, but if you haven't seen the episode, spoilers are incoming. The official synopsis for Project Daedalus is the Discovery crew infiltrates Section 31's headquarters, and suspicions arise that the crew may have a traitor in their midst. Meanwhile, Burnham tries to help Spock, but her efforts don't go as planned. As I mentioned, the episode was written by Michelle Paradise, and it was, of course, directed by Jonathan Frakes, who needs no introduction at this point. I knew that he had transitioned into being a director a while ago. He still acts a little. It's mostly voice work these days. But I was looking at his IMDb page, and it's remarkable. He's directed a ton of TV. So there is a pretty good chance that he's directed at least one episode of your favorite show. Speaking of favorites, he also directed the TNG episode Sub Rosa. So just let that sink in for a little bit.
He has this huge resume, including this really awful episode.
Yeah, that one's high up on it, or low down on it. Yeah, but anyway. But his work was really great tonight on this episode. Let's talk about our theories here quick. I have a theory. It's actually not a theory. It's a little bit of news. I saw an interview with disco costume designer Gersha Phillips recently, and she said that the man Scant would be appearing in Season 2 of Discovery. I don't know if you guys remember, but in maybe the first or second episode, very early on in TNG.
How could we not remember?
You see some crew members, male crew members, wearing a sort of skirt-like uniform, and Gersha Phillips says that will be coming back to Discovery.
It's about time.
It's about time.
Yes.
Oh, thank God. Yeah, and her reasoning behind it seems interesting, but I wonder why this is necessary. Like, there's a lot of, like, ladders, aren't there, on a ship? So let's just all wear pants, right? Everybody's going to wear pants.
Well, all the women on the original series had to wear skirts.
That's right, yes.
I was going to say, it's payback time, sister.
Oh, that's what it is. Okay,
like,
all right.
She's coming for all of those male cast members.
I didn't notice it tonight because I wasn't paying attention, but I know that we do see Nan wearing a skirt-like uniform, which I just assumed was kind of a variation. You know, you can wear a skirt if you want, you can wear pants if you want. That's fine. But I don't have a problem with it. I just think it seems kind of silly. Like, if Saru wants to go full Klinger, like, I'm all with it. But it just seems like, you know, most engineers or people who are going to crawl through a Jeffries tube, you know, don't want to wear a sort of a mid-thigh length skirt. But we'll see. I wanted to, especially for Ella, I wanted to, since the next episode is called Red Angel, I wanted to lock in our theories here. We're not putting any money on it, but just say, like, what we think for sure the Red Angel is before we hopefully find out next week. So, Ella, what's your top ranking theory about Red Angel?
Okay, I have a couple, but while we're talking about theories, I just want to say that last week I said that Arian was going to die, and then she died. Are we convinced? Do we think that she's dead for real?
I think she probably is for now. I guess we'd have to ask Hannah Cheeseman, the actress that plays her. But yeah, it seemed pretty final. So you're the kingmaker here.
She's only mostly dead.
Yeah, right.
True.
Turn her off, turn her back on again. Exactly. What do you think, Ella?
Okay, so I saw a tweet that was like a poll earlier this week that was like, who do you think the Red Angel is? And I have no idea what Twitter account it was from, but then it was like it was like Amanda and like a bunch of stuff I'd never thought of before. Okay. And ever since I saw that tweet, I was like, oh my God, it has to be somebody close to Spock. And then in the episode, they're like laying down these clues for us, since the audience we haven't figured anything out yet, I think. But I love that we have them just being basically like, oh, like, don't you think that because it's focused on Spock, it has to be somebody Spock?
Okay.
And okay. I don't know if I'm convinced that it's, well, at first it was like, oh, like it's Arian, which was the opposite, apparently.
Boy, after what happens tonight, that seems to be the leader for me, because then, you know, she comes back or something like that.
Do you think?
Yeah, that's pretty strong. That's mine now. I'm taking that.
Okay, you can have that one.
Okay.
I like that.
Yeah, because now I'm leaning more towards like mirror universe Amanda or something weird. Like,
oh, okay.
I feel like they're gonna pull something out of the mirror universe that we're like not gonna expect.
Interesting.
But I don't know.
Okay, Bill, do you have a top pick for what the Red Angel is?
It's Wesley Crusher.
I would die.
And it's Will Wheaton. He's been keeping a low profile online recently, so this is a big surprise.
Right.
Oh, that's not right. That's not right. I really have no idea because, like you were saying, it's somebody who either has a connection to Spock or, either direct connection or emotional connection or some kind of connection.
What if it's Sarek?
But it's also somebody from what was it, 500 years into the future that they said that this technology was?
Supposedly.
Yeah, the technology is from 500 years in the future.
Right. So, who in the 28th century is going to have that kind of interest and connection? And that's why I think that the idea of Arium being frozen for 500 years and then revived.
Yeah.
Arium in the 28th century.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Interesting. Okay. Yeah, I mean that's.
But then wouldn't she have showed up to? Well, no. Then I was gonna say, wouldn't she have showed up in this episode, the Red Angel? But she couldn't have, because if that was the event that made her become the Red Angel in the future, she couldn't have messed with that at all.
With that, yeah. Oh boy, this is a real winner. I like this. Before, I liked the idea that it was somebody had suggested online that it was Zora, the AI that develops from Discovery's core, and I like the utility of that because up to this point, I still can't understand why, except for it just being kind of a fun little diversion, like why Calypso exists at all. Like what are they trying to tell us? If they're trying to tell us something. Somebody also said that it might be Craft because, again, why would we introduce this character played by Hodge, Aldous Hodge, and then he just disappears? It's weird.
Right.
But we'll see. We will have an answer hopefully soon. Well, let's get into tonight's episode, Project Daedalus. And, of course, it features, like Ella already gave away, the demise, or seeming demise, of Lieutenant Commander Arium. Dr. Robot, we hardly knew ye. Hopefully she won't be gone, but like we've seen in the look at next week, it looks like they're going all the way with this. We're doing a whole funeral and everything. So for me, that's a sign that I do think that she's going to come back somehow, but we'll see. What you guys think? Bill, what'd you think of the episode just in general?
Well, I just want to agree with that last point you made. It's like, they're not just redshirting her. They're going to they're actually going to make sure that we remember her from week to week. I like the episode. Is that what you asked me?
Yeah. Yes.
I liked it. Yes. Okay.
This guy just telling people he likes things. Ella, what about you?
I liked it. I think that the tactic with having us watch Arium view her memories was worked very well, but I wish that we had seen a little bit more of her character prior to this episode. Even though that scene was so emotionally charged, really we have no idea what her relationship with Michael was, even though we have that one moment where Michael was smiling at her memories. And I just wish that they had built up to it a little bit more, just so that this episode was even more devastating. But even though they didn't do that, I'm still a wreck after watching it. So
it's interesting. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Bill.
Yeah, it's kind of disappointing that they did a very good job of building the character up in the quick 5 minutes at the top of the show. Yeah. It's just a shame that they, prior to this episode, she was just the actress in a kind of robotic way when she's asked questions.
Yeah.
There was no, she didn't have a character until they decided they were going to have a big emotional death scene.
Yeah.
Although the performance, I just want to say her performance, stunning.
Yeah, it was really great.
Job.
Yeah. It's similar to Doug Jones's work. When you work with so many prosthetics, and of course, and this is an aspect of the character Arium, but like she doesn't have like facial expression, so having to act, very like terrified like she is when she's in the airlock, but of course her face doesn't portray that because they just didn't give her like face muscles, robot muscles in her face or whatever. That's that's a certain kind of work that Doug Jones does every week, and Hannah Cheeseman does a really good job at it too.
Is she afraid? Like, I want to know how much of her, like, it's like now we've lost her, and I still want to know how much of her was a robot.
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah. And what I want to know
like
is,
in her head, in her head, is she like, I know I'm supposed to be afraid, but I'm not afraid because I'm a robot now? Like, is she thinking like it's all over and I should be like, can she feel that? But I mean, these questions, it doesn't matter if she can feel sad because I'm sad.
Ella's up late. It's late over there. Something that really grips me is that I'm always wondering, this is something I've talked about on Enterprising Individuals a lot, is the people who write Star Trek aren't, they don't have a crystal ball. They aren't forward-looking like inventors. So they have something like a pad, it's convenient, and then our technology kind of goes, oh, that is a good idea, and we make iPads or whatever. But there's never any cybernetics on Star Trek, and there's rarely any AI on Star Trek. And I always wondered if that was just Gene Roddenberry just didn't care about, robots or whatever. Now, of course, on Discovery, we've specifically got people who have prosthesis, cybernetics. Yay for cybernetics, right? And in this episode, that's addressed. And then also this episode features and promises an ongoing storyline directly based around AI. So I wonder if all of this will lead to some story that explains why humanity kind of moved away from exploring those kind of technological outlets in the future. Because it looks like it's not going to go well based on what happens to Arium and whatever is happening with Control.
Right. I totally agree that seems to be where they're going. And go ahead, Ella.
Ella, did you have something?
Am I missing something big in Star Trek? Like what, like the whole like Control AI thing? Is that like a big thing that I haven't noticed for 20 years of my life? Or
I don't believe
so. Nope, that is brand new.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I was watching it and I was like, am I like the only one who doesn't know what this is or what's happening?
Yeah, they spend a lot of time. That's one of my complaints about this episode, is that I like everything that happened, but I just don't like the way that it happened. I feel like a lot of time is spent in this episode, and this happens in TV, but kind of padding it out and trying to reach. I mean, it was 54 minutes long. It's a long episode, but like the exchange between Spock and Burnham is, it reaps rewards emotionally, but it kind of takes a while to get rolling. And the scene between Spock and Stamets is cute, but it's also like, why is this scene here? It's not really like necessary.
Yeah, necessary, and it was just kind of weird that it was Spock who was given the exposition. I understand that Dr. Culbert has moved out of your quarters.
Yeah, right. Let me give you some relationship advice.
Let me give you. Spock is the last person on the ship who's going to care about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's be honest.
Well, I think it's funny, and I wonder why. I guess we'll find out in the future, but I wonder if this will lead to the stopping of this procedure of giving people prosthetic bodies like Arium has. It's suggested that she's in some kind of accident, and so it's a result of that. Because clearly they don't do it by the time Captain Pike has his accident, because he's just rolling around in a box, beeping at people.
No, he was like, I don't want any of that. I'm not.
Yeah.
I saw it go wrong. Like,
it's in his living will. Yeah. No Arium.
Specifically spelled out in his living will.
Yes.
Do not do the absolute.
Don't Arium.
Just give me a little blinky light.
Do not. Yes, I'll take a light.
Give me a little blinky light.
I love
That's
lights.
all I need.
Yeah. Well, anyway, I hope, like I said, that she returns or in some capacity, because I did really enjoy that character. She was really mysterious. Speaking of mysteries, there are other mysteries in this episode. I want to know, and we've talked about this before on the show, but where are we going with this Section 31 thing? There's a really strange, they set up this, and I don't know if it's supposed to be a reference to something specific or mythological. Of course, the episode's called Project Daedalus, but they're kind of going through a labyrinth, of minds, and they're sort of being tested like you would in a myth. But they get to this station or this base, and it's kind of a fizzle. Like, there's nothing really there. I mean, it's all because, this AI has wiped everybody out, but it doesn't, I don't know, it feels sort of anticlimactic when they finally kind of get there.
I don't know what.
Well, I mean, I assume that Arium has been a Section 31 mole for a while. Unknowingly, probably. But I don't think, I was thinking about it, and, when they found the probe had some kind of weird effect on her.
Yeah.
But that wouldn't be Section 31 behind that.
Right, but I think, if Control was if Control was riding her for a while, then it really lucked out when the Discovery ran across this probe that contained a lot of information, including all of the information on the history of AI amongst all species, like in the galaxy. It's like, whoa, take that, score.
That was from the sphere, though, wasn't it?
Yeah, right.
Okay.
Hey, sometimes luck's on your side.
Yeah, right. That's lucky little AI. Yeah. So I found that to be really interesting. I also I sort of wonder about. So last week we theorized that these admirals, these badmirals that we saw, were kind of the Section 31 admirals, and I think that is pretty much confirmed for this week. We do see the one die. Maybe the other ones, maybe Admiral Squiggy's fine. We don't know at this point. But I thought it was interesting that they also seem to try to loop in the logic extremist thing too. Like, we found out that the Vulcan admiral was a logic extremist. So are all like bad Vulcans that we see in Discovery going to be logic extremists?
Yeah, because they're the only bad Vulcans.
I guess so.
Obviously.
That's the new secret Romulan, is logic extremist.
Yeah, I think it's probably as simple as that, because how much more complicated are they? I mean, they're not going to go into the entirety of Vulcan politics at this stage. They're just, logic extremists, bad. Everybody else, good.
Yeah.
Also, so are we like operating under the assumption that those admirals have been holograms, and Spock was a hologram? The video of Spock killing the people was a hologram.
Right.
But then did an AI create those holograms, or did Section 31 create the holograms?
I think the implication seemed to be that it was the AI, or maybe I'm just assuming that based on the way that these killer AI sort of things play out, but it seemed to be that's what it was. So when Leland and Giorgio were talking to them, those were the real admirals then? Like, Section 31 wouldn't fall for that hologram thing, would they?
Oh.
I don't know. Are they being manipulated as well? The real question here is, so Saru can see an ultraviolet, I guess. He can tell when people are lying. Is that something that we were supposed to get out of that scene in today's episode?
I don't think so. I think he was just using a computer
just
filter.
Just with filters? Yeah.
Yeah, because, he would have noticed it, live rather than during the playback.
Sure.
But, I assume that they said that the admirals had been frozen stiff for just like a few hours, or was it a few days, or what? A very relatively brief time.
Okay, all right. Yeah, it was a couple of weeks or something like that. Or,
they said at least 2 weeks.
So they are dead, aren't they? Oh, crap.
So Giorgio and Leland were probably talking to live ones, and then the AI just went all Skynet and wiped them out.
Yeah, Robotic Squid in 2020. That's my vote. Robotic Squid / Oblivion. I liked there was the inclusion of Admiral Cornwell was interesting. I mean, she's a welcome presence always, but I didn't think that she really needed to be in this episode. But I like the fact that she was. I like the exchange between her and Pike. And I don't need Trek to explain anything. Like, I don't I've given up. I don't care about canon. Just entertain me. But I do like the fact that they made a specific statement about, where the Enterprise was. And it was really interesting. It was that, basically like we sent you out there to not be destroyed in case we're destroyed. It's kind of like a ship in a bottle in a bottle.
Yeah, that was crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, just what a throwaway line to cover up that huge, like, kind of a plot. You know what I mean? Like, he's just like, how could you not tell me this? And she's like, oh, you're the best of the best, and we can't have you getting killed. And then he's like, oh, well, thank you. And then we can all just move on. Like,
Right.
And I like how then they cut to the rest of the Discovery crew going, oh, so we're dispensable. Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, all right, we get it.
Put us out there on the front line. That's no problem. Yeah. I thought that the practice of Ariam sort of saving, or reviewing her memories was interesting, and it's something that I like Bill said, like I really wish that they had started this sooner because you can do some really fun stuff with that. She's like going through. Oh, she's eating. Oh, she's serving on the bridge. Oh, she's washing blood off of her hands. You can slip all these cool things in there. But of course, I think it was mainly to just.
But Tilly has them now.
Yeah, right. To have that thing
so
at the end
we'll
where
see more of them.
Yeah. Ariam, check this out. I'm sending you cat pictures. Look at these, quick.
Yeah, that's interesting. They did make a point of saying all of her memories have been downloaded to Discovery. So now they have that as a resource to go back to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Maybe her first name is Zora Ariam. Who knows? We also
the most heartbreaking part of this episode is just that, like, we see her start to figure out that something is wrong with her, right?
Yeah.
Like she looks like confused, and then she's like, Tilly, you stay right there. You don't move. And then she kind of comes to and is like, Tilly's gone. Like, I was just like, oh no.
Yeah, it's weird to think about, like you said, Ella, like what her experience is. Like, does she feel emotions all the time, or only some of the time, or is her brain affected by her injury? Because I just see her as like a Ghost in the Shell cyborg, basically. Like I'm assuming she's just like a brain in a robot body, but and then of course Tilly says, "Oh, you're part robot." So the entire crew is basically, and the Admiral, are all charged with treason, and it's funny because I know that we are in the sort of mid-23rd century here. It's not necessarily the very enlightened 24th century of Picard's time, but I always kind of bristle when they add or mention very specific sort of 20th or 21st century concepts. Like, yes, absolutely, giving warp drive designs to the Klingons would be an act of treason, but they're supposed to be past this idea of statehood, the idea that you could do something that's against, our principles, and that makes you an enemy. And saying treason, I assume that, the penalty is death or something like it, for them. And so, yes, it's a Admiral that's sort of leveling that at them, but I feel like there's some kind of more complicated conversation to have about that, rather than to just say, "Oh, you guys are they're treasoners. Go get them."
Yeah, but at the same time, this is, presumably, the control AI that is making this charge, and probably, with the intent of, what's the worst charge we can level against them? Treason.
Right.
So,
yes.
I think that may. It sounds worse than insubordination, or
right.
So,
yeah.
Yeah.
I guess
I feel like treason is like a wartime crime,
Yeah. Right.
For the Federation, at least.
Aiding the enemy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, just the way that like the Federation sort of practices war when they need to. I just kind of assumed that it was sort of more advanced than that. But I guess that's an easy way to sort of understand the kind of trouble that they're in. Our heroes are always running off half-cocked. I did like that Saru actually asked for permission to do like his crazy like one-man thing in this episode. Everybody else always just does it on their own. He's like, Captain, can I go do something crazy? He's like, yeah, sure, go ahead.
And the fact that Pike at point in time is like, yeah, go ahead and do something crazy here. That's what the script does.
Right. Yeah, right.
You know, Tilly's going crazy. Michael's going crazy. Yeah, fine. That's whatever.
Yeah, it's a situation normal.
Yeah.
I like the fact that we focused on Ariam, and I know it was specifically to have her, die, basically, be in this very rough situation. But I wouldn't mind other episodes that do the same thing. Like, I want to know what Bryce gets up to, when he's off duty, or like, let's have an episode that focuses more on, Owo and Detmer. Like, do they hang out like when they're not on the bridge or something like that? Like, I'd like the show to focus in a little more on our side characters.
Yeah, I would love to see. It seems like the arc storytelling structure that they've adapted has so little room for that, which is a real shame as far as I'm concerned. That there really, like we were saying before, there really should have been more Ariam leading up to this episode.
Yeah,
and the same goes for the rest of the crew.
Yeah. It's one of the strengths of the new Trek, which of course it's not new anymore, but I mean TNG and the following episodes, is that it's not just like Sulu gets like one good line in the episode. We're actually focusing on a large crew. And so, I mean, Discovery, I'm assuming, is going to go for a while, so I'm sure they'll get there someday. But the sooner the better.
Yes.
I had a couple questions about technical things in this episode. First off, they do establish, and I can buy this, I guess, that Ariam does need to breathe. That's important. But we also established that she is extremely strong, and Michael kind of gets her ass handed to her by Dr. Robot this week. And she's just trying everything. She's just, she's speed bagging her crotch, and she's hitting her in the face, and she's doing everything she can, and it's not working. Don't pick a fight with a robot, or at least a augmented human. You're not going to win that one. But so she needs a space helmet. That's fine. Commander Nan, we've set up this very specific thing, and we remind the audience that she's a Barzan and that she has a breathing apparatus, to breathe in a Earth normal atmosphere. But if you destroy or remove her apparatus, can't she just like put her helmet on and then like tell her spacesuit to like give her Barzan air? Is it only programmed?
My God, I didn't think about it.
Yeah, it's like they literally have apparatus for breathing. So if your problem is you can't breathe, there's a solution.
Yeah, it's like why didn't you set up your suit that way?
Yeah.
Oh, this is a human suit. Oh well, I'll just wear it anyhow.
Yeah, it's just.
Exactly. I still have my apparatus, so that's fine.
Yeah, future OSHA.
I hate that it's just like out there. Like it's just like I hate that this is an option for her to be like, well, I'm gonna rip this off and just completely like incapacitate you for the rest of this fight. Like.
Yeah, it's very gauche to rip somebody's breath apparatus off. But I didn't get that they were like surgically implanted, because she looks like her face looks kind of rough when she's we see her at the end of that sequence.
Yeah, that was
like torn out.
That was attached. That was painful for her.
Yeah.
Which is probably why it took her so long to pick it up off the floor and stick it back in again.
Yeah.
Even though Michael and Ariam are fighting for like 10 minutes.
Yeah, we got some pretty good Kirk moves from Burnham in that fight too.
Oh my God, I loved that. Oh my God, when she like drop kicks Ariam and just hits the ground, I was like, you have to get back up right away. Like, there's no time for you to do that.
Yeah, that was it was pretty great. But anyway, that was just my. I don't know. It's like a stupid, like nerdy thing to complain about, but that was kind of my complaint about that last sequence. Also, like I think that it was affecting. It's a sad decision, but I think it was a good decision to sort of kill off Ariam. But having everything have to be contrived to reach this certain point, because that's what you've come up with. We're all experts at Trek. We've all seen thousands of hours of Trek, right? So, come up with something that it's like, no, yeah, that is a problem. I can see how they would get out of that. Like, so Arium flies out into space. You could just beam her up, I guess, and then like beam her to the brig or something. Yeah. Like, I can think of a lot of Star Trek solutions to this problem they found themselves in. And so, it still affected me, but I'm also kind of like, come on, guys.
That's what I was also kind of thinking. I was like, is this really the only, like, is that like option number one and there are no 2 and 3 or back plans? I think that was kind of almost barbaric. It was like, well, now we have to kill her. It was a little un-Star Trek, but I was like, I also see how like she's like this crazy robot, and it's like they put her in the brig, but the thing takes her back over, and it's just like, like she just kills everyone on board. Like,
even Pike is like, all right, kill her. We don't want to take a chance with crazy like, robot. Yeah.
It's like everyone's just like, well, like.
But think of all the times that Data's gone rogue.
That experiment. I know. And we always say Data.
And they never just say, melt him down. Come on, kill him. Phaser on full.
We'll just make another one. That's fine.
Yeah, right.
It's never eject Data out the airlock.
I guess
Although they did establish that it was a former penal colony, so there were probably defenses against beaming people out or any quicker Trekkie things where the airlock probably was, not the best choice, but the only choice.
Yeah.
Yeah, they set it up so early, and then also they, it wasn't like something that was like, this is the only option we have, and just do it. Like they pointed the scene in that direction, and then and it seemed like they were going to have Michael make this very difficult command choice. And then, from what I understand, what happened in the episode, it's sort of taken out of her hands when, like, Control pulls the plug, right? Isn't that what happened?
I thought it was Nan who had snuck up behind Michael and hit the airlock button herself.
Well, Nan, she was just about to tell us the whole jam about Project Daedalus, so nice work. Well, let's see. Anybody else have anything that they wanted to say about the episode that we haven't said yet as we're wrapping up?
I don't think so.
Ella, you good?
Yeah.
I mean, I think, I just want to touch on, I like the couple of Stamets scenes that we had, even though, you're fine. You're fine. You're fine. Would you guys not be so quiet? You know what? I don't want you making noise either. Get out of here. I thought there was a lot. I thought that Anthony had a lot of good work there, and he had a good rapport with. Makes me miss Tig Notaro.
Where is Jet Reno? That's the huge question. I mean, these episodes
she's in the basement of the ship.
Yeah. I mean, the episodes are playing out almost in real time, and they've been in trouble for a couple episodes now, so it's not like they could have just dropped her off somewhere. Like, she's kind of in this to win this, with the treason and all that. So, where is she?
And they had such a great rapport that I really wanted to see more of that.
Yeah. Well, it looks like it's an all-hands-on-deck situation next week, so maybe she'll be back.
Maybe.
Also, I just love that they're just letting Spock be the drama queen that he always wanted to be.
Yeah.
Like him just being like, well, now I enjoy expressing emotions because I get to be angry. Like, I'm going to knock over the chest. Like, yeah. I was just like, this is the man I know and love.
I saw those singing plants on Talos, and it made me smile, and I enjoyed that. So I'm going to go full force on this whole emotion thing.
If smiling is fun, then yelling must be too. Here we go.
Yeah. You think they'd bond over their like semi-abusive dad, but it seems to have just driven them apart. Yeah. Well, that's too bad, but I'm sure we'll find out more as we go forward. Yeah, Bill, do you have something else?
Well, yeah. I mean, Michael loves Sarek, and Spock hates Sarek, and so that's clearly that's probably the biggest root of their dispute. Is Daddy loved you more than he loved me.
Oh, boy.
Rough.
Well, boy, I don't know how we can top that. So let's think about wrapping it up. I wanted to say that we are, of course, at the part of the show where we try to look forward, ask what's coming up, what are the lights, who is the angel, how is Spock involved, will Tilly dump Ariam's memories into her Instagram account for all to see. Let's speculate on what we think is coming up in Season 2, or furthering episodes of Season 2 of Discovery. We saw a little flash of what happens next week, but what do you guys think? Are we going to get some kind of big reveal or some kind of resolution?
If we're going to start talking about the preview, we need to talk about how I'm going to fight Ash Tyler with my bare hands.
Oh, okay, right. Give him a drop kick.
Like, that shot just infuriated me. I'm like, it's done. It's over. We're semi-adults about it. I'm over it.
Right.
Oh, I don't know.
It's complicated.
I love feeling about it, apparently.
It's quite complicated. And this was episode 9. How many episodes are going to be in this season?
Great question. I should have the answer to. I think it's 14 or 15.
Okay, so they've still got a third of the season to go still. So
right.
Yeah, I mean, but they got a lot. I mean, I think there's going to be at least some kind of resolution to the Section 31 plot that will build into the new series.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to reveal that Wesley Crusher is the Red Angel.
Yeah, of course they got to get that out.
Yeah, obviously, yes.
And I'm gonna lay down my bet that they've mentioned this a couple of times where there was more to the death of Burnham's parents than a simple Klingon 31 was behind it, or there were other forces behind it. I'm going to lay my marker and say that is going to be the basis of season 3.
Oh, okay. Ooh. Interesting.
There's going to be some kind of reveal at the end of this season, and then next season is going to have that as a primary arc.
Interesting. I always thought that if Leland is, if Giorgio has to go through Leland to get a promotion, or sort of be in charge of her sort of Section 31 unit, which would be the basis of the show, then we're going to have to see that probably play out a little in Discovery before we get to the Giorgio show. Which sounds like a cooking show, not like an NBC sitcom. And but they've announced
Giorgio and Picard show.
Yeah, right. They've said that her show probably won't be out until 2021 or so. So that would give them time to do what you're talking about and kind of have that be season 3 of Discovery. So yeah, I would definitely look forward to that if that's what they're going to do. Let's see. Just one little note about Wesley Crusher. I was thinking about the episode Hide and Q the other day, where Riker, gets Q powers and he turns Wesley into a man, and they could not have missed it even. They could have not missed it any farther. I mean, nothing against Will Wheaton; he's a great guy, but they picked this lantern-jawed bodybuilder type, and it's that's it's turned out a little different. So.
Yeah, they could have had Frakes doing double duty at the Wesley Crusher.
Literally.
And that would have been more accurate.
Maybe he was like, I'll aid you, but also give you an upgrade, dude. I'll give you some pec implants, and we're going to do the whole thing top to bottom. So,
that guy, I mean, that actor really looked like tiny Will Wheaton times 1,000, though,
Like they just blew him up?
It didn't look like, literally, it just didn't look like he had aged like a person. It was just
Just go 150% on this, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, boy. Well, anyway, come on the show, Will. We'd love to talk to you. That's it for our show this week. Thanks for joining us, everybody. If you like what you hear, you can follow us on Facebook and Twitter at EISDpod for updates and to get notified when new episodes of both Enterprising Individuals and Discoverage, this show, are released. We've got a discussion group on Facebook called Enterprising Interlocutions. You can find it by searching or by going to facebook.com/EISDpod. And on that group, we go deeper into the kinds of discussions and speculations you've heard here tonight. You can also tweet to us on the show by using the hashtag Discoverage. Tweet to us at EISTpod on Twitter. You can email us at EISTpod@gmail.com. And when you're on the internet, head to your listening platform or podcatcher of choice and subscribe to our show. Give us a rating and a review because that really helps us out. And you can check out our merch available on tpublic.com/user/just-enough-trope. We've got Star Trek stuff. We've got phone cases, mugs, and all that good stuff. Discoverage will return on March 21st for the next episode of Season 2 of Star Trek Discovery. That episode is entitled The Red Angel, and it will be directed by Hanel Culpepper, who is the director that's been chosen to direct the first 2 episodes of The Picard Show. So we'll get a look at that. And in the meantime, you can check out our main show, Enterprising Individuals, at enterprisingindividuals.com. Every Wednesday, I and a guest discuss in excruciating detail a selected episode from a Star Trek series. We also have news from the Trek sphere, updates on Disco, interviews with special guests. On this last episode, I talked with Dr. Aaron McDonald about the science, specifically the physics of Trek, and how warp drives and wormholes work, and how spaghettification is not as delicious as it sounds. And you can find conversations like that, also off-topic rants, DS9 and Voyager episode recaps, and more at our Patreon page at patreon.com/EISTpod. Bill, thanks so much for joining us tonight. Where can people find you online?
People can find me online on Twitter at BeadLeisner. And they can also find my works on Amazon and Barnes & Noble and all those other wonderful little book-selling places.
Absolutely. And Ella, thanks as always. Where can people find Generations Geek online?
At Generations Geek on Twitter and Instagram. And coming up this week, maybe tomorrow, I'm going to be out there in London trying to get Tom Hiddleston's autograph, who plays Loki. And is the love of my life. So you can check up on that on Instagram.
Have you been looking at the or keeping an eye on the guest list for Destination Trek this year?
I haven't at all.
Oh,
because
it looks pretty good. Just to say,
me being there was such a huge fluke. I'm just like, oh my god, that it was like so. The whole weekend was just so surreal, and I went back to London, and I was like, okay,
that just happened. Yeah. All right. Well,
it's over now.
Check out Generations Geek. Check out Bill's stuff online on Amazon. And that's it for us. Thanks for listening. We're signing off. This is Aaron for Bill and Ella saying, live long and prosper.